Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is up, everybody? Happy Monday to you all in The Lock Shop. Welcome to the program. Huss holding it down while Dusty makes it back from Vancouver to Edmonton after another big Blue Bombers win. We will get to that coming up. And overall, an outstanding weekend in the Lock Shop. I know there's a lot of UFC winners. We crushed the CFL. And of course, Patty G had to sweat this one out. It was on the verge of one of the worst bad beats in a long time. But Lock Shoppers have faith because it ain't over till it's over. And your guy, Hideki Matsuyama, butchered a 5-shot lead on the back nine. And then Comley and Cooley birdied 17-18 to get you in the mix for a big W, Patty.
It is never a no sweat in the world of golf betting. It was tight. It was tighter than it needed to be, but Decky pulled through. And you talk about, it would have been one of the worst beats in a long time. It probably would have been the worst beat since my guy, Akshay Bhatia, 3-putt on 18 and ended up losing his potential second championship victory of the year. Luckily, that didn't happen. Luckily, we didn't have that meltdown. And I've gone back-to-back. Aaron and I last week got a winner with Decky at this FedEx St. Jude. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think I might be the greatest golf bettor on the planet right now.
Hey, listen, you have killed it this year. And I mean, especially the last 2 months or so, once we've really got into the meat of this season. And my picks were garbage this week in the golf. However, everything else went my way. I got to shout out Big Maple. I got to shout out my guy, Aaron Bronstetter. And it was funny. I had pre-taped the recording with Bronstetter when we were doing the Lock Shop on whatever that was, Thursday or Friday. And Bronstetter had told me, he said, you know what, if you're looking for sort of an exotic bet for this fight, I'm looking at 5 or 6 to 1 on Duplessis by submission. So I had that in the back of my head. Big Maple was all over that. So yes, it was an auto bet. I also had the fight to not go the distance at minus 143, and then Duplessis is a pick'em. I take no credit for those picks whatsoever because I don't follow the UFC very enough, but that's what the Lock Shop is all about, connecting with people that might be able to help give us a side. So to everyone fired up about the UFC wins on the weekend, very well done. Heck of a fight. We were just talking to Zach about that off air beforehand. Now, we got to there's a bunch of business to take care of. Poker tourney tomorrow, CFL on the weekend. However, for anyone that follows the guys on Insta or Coolbet, looking resplendent, I joked that we should have had a Lock Shop fashion segment because of how good fellas were looking. But Pat, and by the way, congratulations to Andrew, who got married on the weekend. Pat got married the weekend before. Is it like Jake Bolin Moss getting married on next weekend, minus 300 or something like that? Jake, are you feeling the heat from everybody else all around you that every weekend there's a Coolbet wedding?
No, not feeling the heat. I got a couple of years on these guys, so I think I'm all right for now. But yeah, it was a great wedding, and I wanted to get back to the golf quickly. Patty and I were sitting there, and he pulls up the leaderboard, and he goes, all right, Jake, how's Hideki blowing this? We're looking at the leaderboard. He's at 17. Everyone else was 12 or worse. And I'm like, I don't know. It's going to have to be one of the big dogs that come up. I think Nick Dunlap was the closest one to him at the time. And sure enough, we're getting texts right down the stretch of the back nine. Patty's like, no, please, no, Decky. No, he's tweeting Decky, no. And then sure, he's like, never a doubt, back-to-back birdies to finish it off. And Hideki wins it. Yeah, no, the wedding was great. But yeah, just a little story from that. Yeah, not feeling too much heat yet, though, Huss. Actually, next weekend, my girlfriend's sister's getting married. So that's the wedding I'll be at.
You know, you guys are at that age. I'm luckily past it where, I mean, it's basically every weekend. It's seemingly right now for you guys. I did have 1 year where over the course of the 8 weekends of July and August, I had 7 weddings. I think I was in 3 wedding parties and emceed 2 of them. I mean, basically, it nuked the entire summer. But hey, you know, we're close to it now. It's kind of better late August because we're already focused on NFL kickoff anyways. There's not as much grandiose traveling and stuff this time. We're focusing in. We're getting down to it. But hey, as I said, you guys, just another excuse to look like models when you're throwing out the Instagram pics. So nicely done. So big UFC weekend for the Lock Shop, big golf weekend for the Lock Shop, and a massive week for the Canadian Football League, certainly for the people that were tailing me on Monday. You know, it was funny, on CFL 110 this week, we were breaking down the home and road splits and how teams like Calgary, for instance, were undefeated at home, had not won on the road. And I had said, listen, up until further notice, I will be back in Calgary. They lost to the Ottawa Red Blacks on Thursday, so it started off at 0-1. However, we got into the Lock Shop on Friday, and every one of these games, like we said, Pat, were basically like 2-point spreads, 1.5-point spreads. The biggest one was 2.5. And I'd said, you know what? I think this is a money line weekend. We just play the money line, and I regret that we'd already put the partner parlay together because although Dusty and I were on opposite sides, so it wouldn't have worked. Although we were going to take the under in the Montreal-Saskatchewan game, and that was comfortably under early on. But Alouettes get the win. The Elks comfortably get the win. Hamilton is just an absolute tire fire right now. And then the Bombers come in and spoil the party for Nathan Rourke last night. So if you rode with me on that one, that was plus 712. Very nice one. And a bit of a statement from the Bombers last night that, listen, welcome back to the Canadian Football League, Nathan Rourke. And it's going to be a very, very exciting rest of the season. But the Bombers are back big time. This defense, guys, now they got a touchdown with 2 seconds left and a 2-pointer that changed it from 20-3 to 20-11 and put a little lipstick on the pig. But let's just assume that was whatever. 3 points given up by the defense yesterday, a shutout the week before, 6 points given up by the defense the week before, and then 19 on the road in Saskatchewan. Over the past month, this Bomber defense has turned into maybe the most dominant unit on either side of the football in the Canadian Football League. And I mean, we all remember our conversations, particularly on WST and here in Winnipeg, about the way the West looked after 5-6 weeks of the season. The Bombers were 0-4 and then 2-6. You had the BC Lions looking like the class of the league at 5-1. The Riders in great shape. I'll say this about the Riders. They deserve to win that game. I mean, they kind of own that themselves. But hey, hell of an end by Montreal. It was a great football game. But man, like where this defense came out, and Jordan Younger, of course, took over. He's a first-year defensive coordinator taking over for Richie Hall. He has some of the most unique packages, and in particular going up against this BC offense, the way they've done in their last 2 games. I mean, moving guys from the line of scrimmage into linebacker and then playing far more DBs or traditional DBs than you've had. Like at one point, the Bombers were in a 3-1-8. A lot of creativity from Jordan Younger. It's given BC a whole lot of problems. Now, for the Rourke fans and BC fans, I've got good news. They don't play the Bombers again. Nathan Rourke right now in his CFL career is 10-1 against the Canadian Football League outside of Winnipeg, and now 0-4 against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So statement game for Winnipeg. And guys, even more so is it true today than it was a week ago when we talked about this. The West, it's almost like we're starting over right now. BC's lost 4 in a row. They're 5-5. Saskatchewan's 5-4-1. You got Calgary and the Bombers at 4-6, and the Elks, who have won 3 in a row at 3-7. Any team can make the playoffs, and I would argue even down to Edmonton. Any team could win the West right now, and it is going to be a wild final couple months in the Canadian Football League, particularly in the West. Montreal basically has the East, for all intents and purposes, wrapped up right now. But it's going to be buckle up, and I can tell you spirits around here a heck of a lot better than they were after that miserable first month of the season.
There's no doubt about that. I wish I took my own advice on Friday when talking about that BC Bombers game. I mentioned how difficult it would be for Nathan Rourke to come into one game with limited practice throughout the week, relearn the playbook, and come in and beat the hottest defense in the CFL. And I really wish I took my own advice there, because, boy, that defense once again has proven why they are so elite. You bring up a great point. Might not just be the best. They are. Let's be honest. They are the best defensive unit in the CFL. They might be the best overall unit in the entire Canadian Football League. They're starting to get healthy. Lawler comes back, already has an impact. Like, I'd be curious. I haven't taken a look at the outright odds market on Coolbet. I got them here now. Blue Bombers at plus 650 to win the Grey Cup. Right now, to be honest, I think things are just way too tight across the league for me to really stomach placing an outright bet for anyone to win the Grey Cup. This is just setting up for the Labor Day Classic even better. If the Argos are able to beat the Rough Riders at home this week, the Riders drop to 5-5-1, and the Blue Bombers say they pick up a victory this week, man, that just adds even more stakes to that game coming up, which we already know how high the stakes are. But the West is an absolute meat grinder. Anyone can win. You mentioned it, the Owls sitting at the top there, but I think the Argos, that's a completely different topic for another day, depending on what happens with Chad Kelly here.
Yeah.
The Red Blacks at 6-2, sitting pretty good there. But I mean, for folks obviously who follow this program, mostly being from, Edmonton and Winnipeg, this West Division is just so intriguing, especially as someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight. I think it is just so much fun having the capabilities that week in, week out, truly it is a coin flip. And that's what we've seen so far. And I think that's what we're going to see for the rest of the year. Although if I'm buying stock in a team right now, it's probably the Blue Bombers at that price. I do think, let's be honest, Nathan Rourke is going to figure it out. He is going to get back to what we saw when he was in the black and orange a few years ago. It just was such a tough position for him to go into that game, thinking that he was just going to light the world on fire.
The expectation for the game, I mean, it moved 5.5 points.
It's crazy.
And listen, I mean, I think that just shows how highly everyone feels about Nathan Rourke and the talent that he brings to the table. But it was a huge ask. And I think everybody forgot who they were playing and what the Bombers were bringing to the table, coming off the bye and their last time they'd been out. Like, let's not forget, BC's offense was pretty damn good with Vernon Adams, and they got shut out here in Winnipeg. Just on the features for a minute. Shout out to Chris Beck, a loyal lock shopper in WST, who tweeted me earlier this morning that the Bombers were 7-1. So the Bombers have actually gone down from 7-1 to plus 650 this morning. But I'm just looking at these futures right now, folks. We're not getting a better number on the Bombers at any point this season than this number right now. Like, Montreal's 2-1, BC is plus 215. Like, the Bombers are one game back of BC and have the tiebreaker now on account of this the sweep in the last two games. Like, it's fully wide open in the West, and the Bombers, like, listen, the Bombers, if that West final is at home, they have proven that they are very tough at home, and it's a lot tougher for a dome team to go east and play outside the fold than before. And one other note, I know that it's gone down from 750 to from 700 to plus 650, but I'm also realizing when I pull it up, you can put your multiplier on that if you want. So if you want to jump on a future and use your 20-cent multiplier, you sort of make up what you maybe lost by not getting in earlier this morning. So to Bomber fans right now that have been waiting for the spot, I don't know what more you need to see as opposed to the last couple weeks. This team is absolutely in it. And listen, we saw last year in the Grey Cup, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, with what Montreal did. Montreal's the class of the league right now, not taking anything away from them. But again, it's a long time till we get to BC for the Grey Cup. So that is all up there right now, as I say. I think those Bomber futures, by the time we get to next week, probably are going to be coming down. So my advice to you, if you like a Bomber future, do it now. And if you want to use the 20% multiplier, go for it as well. Listen, before we start diving into some NFL future stuff, quickly, tomorrow is our big poker night. We're going to kind of give it a run through for the first time with everyone. I know there's some lock shoppers that have already signed up, but here are the deets, gang. If you want to play with myself and Remus from Winnipeg Sports Talk, Dusty's going to be in, I think Awanek and Gazzola, and there is a $100 bounty on my head and Dustin Nielsen's head. The tournament is starting at 8 p.m. in Edmonton, 9 p.m. in Winnipeg time tomorrow night. This is what you need to know. You need to go to, just when you're pulling up Coolbet, as if you're in the sports book right now, click on poker. Now I'm playing on my laptop or my computer. So I just went in and just did the download Coolbet Poker. You'll see the green button right there. Download it, jump in, and then simply go to tourneys. And they're all ranked by time. Tomorrow night at whatever the time is and the time zone is, you'll see the Lock Shop Poker Attorney. Click it in, $30 to enter. Well, technically €20, so it ends like being 29 and change. But jump in on that, and then join us tomorrow for our first crack at a little bit of a Lock Shop WST EST poker tourney. And Jake, this is one of the things. I mean, when we're talking cool bet, we're usually talking about the sports bet. I was very intrigued, by the way, about the UFC promo last week, and did a little dabbling with that UFC Gold Extreme game, the slot game, which I did enjoy. Obviously, there's the casino there, but the poker app is something that we haven't talked a lot about. I have played it on my own. I can't wait to get in the proverbial octagon with all of our friends here from the program, the EST guys, and can crack at it tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's such a great thing for the Lock Shop community to be able to put this together, a tournament where people can sign up and get involved and play against you guys with some bounties on, you and Dusty and some other EST and WST personalities. So, yeah, definitely an exciting time. Also, I know you were kind of walking through the steps there. There also is a filter button. If you go to the filter button and type in lock or Lock Shop, and apply that, it is a little easier to find. I do have a little step-by-step that I'm going to post on Twitter this afternoon. I'll have you guys share that as well, and hopefully it'll help people a little bit. I think the one link's having a bit of issues, so right now the best advice we have is to go into the poker software. You can either do what Huss said, scroll down through the tournaments and find the Lock Shop, or just filter your way, type in Lock Shop, and you should be able to apply and register for the tournament. So I know a handful of people are already in there. I believe Albie said he sent me a message, so I'll look into that. But yeah, just head into the poker. You can either download, like Huss said, or play in your browser and register for the tournament, and we'll be ready to go tomorrow evening.
And to be totally honest, I'll piggyback off what Jake said. If you want the best experience anyways, whether you're playing on a device or on your laptop, the best way to experience the product itself is by downloading that Coolbet Poker app. If you really don't want to do that and you want to play through your browser, just click the Play Poker in Browser button, and it's going to take you to the poker product. But then just go back to that landing page, and then you'll click the tournament link. We'll get that poker page out as well. There's a direct link. The reason why we're announcing it a little bit later, as Jake said, we had some issues with our poker provider. It should be all good to go. And this is our first try, so we're going to have our first crack at it. Might be a little more of an intimate event, which is always not a bad thing. But this is going to be, we call it the Lock Shop Poker Series for a reason, right? This is not going to be the last event. So if you do miss out something, if you got a fantasy football draft or whatever whatever it may be, and you can't make it, don't worry. There will be more opportunities. But with that being said, since the field is going to be a little bit smaller, you might have a better chance of knocking out one of these guys, getting a bounty, and ultimately winning this prize.
My head's on a swivel already, you scoundrels. I'm ready to go. So yeah, just basically, I mean, it's real simple. Go to Coolbet, click on the poker. I have downloaded the app. That's the way I normally play it. Great platform. And as I said, quite easy once you get it. If you want to search it, or you know when the tournament is, you can see everything's done by time. Go in there. Anyways, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. And if you have any questions or you have any issues, just fire a DM or something like that. We'll do everything we can to help you out. Hey, listen, before we dive into NFL stuff, we do have a question from Dawson Nielsen. I'm not sure if that's any relation to Dusty Nielsen, maybe a burner. But it's a lacrosse question for the master, Patty G. Pat Gregoire, first of all, is there any way we could get Minto Cup involved on Coolbet? And any idea what's going at NLL? Adam Levi reporting that there is a dispersal draft. I'll just throw that to you. You seem to be in the know on all things lacrosse, Patty.
Yeah, so first and foremost, Minto Cup is the Canadian Junior A National Championship. We'll have to look into regulations, obviously, because it is junior age. It all depends on the majority of the players and their age, whether they're above 19 years age or older. So that is the reason why we don't have it up. If you are looking for other things, we do know we've got the Senior B National Championship up, the President's Cup. That goes on next week. We've got outrights odds for that. We're going to have game odds for that. We also have both the BC, so the WLA Championship going on right now, and the Ontario Championship. We have odds for both of those up there. So if you're looking for your lacrosse fix, that's your best way. Again, look into the Minto. We'll possibly have that. Again, it's more of a regulation thing, just due to underage players competing in that. So that's my best answer there. My other answer in regards to what Adam Levy is reporting, I can also say that I'm hearing rumblings of the same. It does sound like Panther City, obviously a team down in Fort Worth. That is what is speculated as the potential team that is folding, but I've also heard that there is a possibility for new owners that would either keep the team down in somewhere in the Texas area or possibly relocate the team. Because we're so close to the season, if they do find a new owner, my guess, and this is not what I've heard or anything, would probably be that they would keep the team in Fort Worth for another season and then move the team elsewhere. But if Adam Levi's hearing, Levy is a very, very credible source, won the media person of the year last year. So if he's reporting it, that probably means that they have come down to a concrete answer, and that is going to happen. That's what we were hearing, but we didn't know if that was going to 100% happen, just because from what I heard at least, was there is still a potential owner in the mix to scoop up Panther City.
All right, we're going to get to NFL futures. Jake, you get locked and loaded. We'll start off with you. We're going to just hit a few of our favorite player props as we continue our sort of preseason NFL coverage here on the Lock Shop. Pat, you did actually answer a question that I always had and forgot to ask you. That was, what the hell is Panther City? I'd seen them play. I'm like, what the heck? It didn't make sense. So anyways, there you go, Dawson. You want lacrosse info, you bring it to Pat, and it'll be interesting. And of course, nobody does better when it comes to posting games and options for lacrosse than Coolbet.com. All right, we're going to throw out 3 player props that we like right now for the NFL futures, and this is sort of topical this week and next week because, of course, we've all got our fantasy drafts, we've all got our fantasy auctions going on right now, and I actually do really like, just when I'm making fantasy decisions or kind of, thinking about where guys will probably come out, there's no better barometer of that than the season totals for touchdowns, for yards. So often if you're thinking about, do I like this guy better? Do I like this guy better? No one runs the numbers through than the guys that are posting the lines more. So I will say that is something that I think a lot of fantasy players don't take into account. And it's a great resource for you when you are putting together your draft boards or trying to make some tough decisions, check what their totals are from the season and where they're posted. But Jake, we're through another week of the preseason, kind of midway through as we get closer to kickoff. I know you've been all over the player futures right now. What's catching your eye that you're kind of in on right now, a couple weeks away from the season?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I gave a few out Huss when we did a little NFL futures segment a couple Fridays ago. I'm going to start off running back category, and I'm taking James Conner over 775.5 rushing yards this season. He had a really solid season in 2023. He's over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, and he only played 13 games. The impact that Kyler Murray has on that offense is substantial. I think, what he can do with his legs can really open up the field for a guy like Conner. I believe he led the league in big runs last year, so runs of 20 yards or more. So this guy can break one with the best of them. He was third in average yards per carry amongst running backs with 200-plus carries last season. So, he's getting out there. He's getting good chunk yardage. He's 5 yards per carry last year on 208 carries. So I think a guy like Conner can have another strong year, well over 800 yards. And the fact that he was sixth in rushing yards last year, but he was 21st in attempts. So I think if we see more attempts from Conner this year, they do have a bit of a solid passing attack now that they brought in Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, like I said, with the legs of Kyler Murray, I think it opens up the field big time for Conner. So that'll be my running back player future, and I'll let you guys take the next one here.
Patty, where do you want to go with your next one?
Yeah, I'll go with my only yardage prop that I picked. The other two are awards. I had a real hard time with some of these yardage, and that just goes to show how good Vegas is setting at these lines. But one that jumped out to me, and I know I always say, I don't like betting on my team. I don't like mushing my team. I stay away from the Buffalo Bills, but I've already bet 2 player prop futures so far. I came on here a couple of weeks ago where it was the Matt and Pat show, and I said I really liked Coleman to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year at 15-1. It's now down to 13-1. So you think Keon Coleman can have a big season in his first year and win Rookie of the Year, dethrone one of those quarterbacks? I still like the value at 13-1. But this guy is one of Allen's weapons. He's not a new shiny toy, but I think he's a toy that's going to get a lot of playing time, and that's Dalton Kincaid, over 800.5 yards. In his rookie season, he caught 73 passes on 91 targets for 673 yards. That was with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis on the team, though. With those big targets leaving, Buffalo has to replace 241 targets and 1,929 yards of production from last season. That is a huge, huge void that has to be filled. And I think Dalton Kincaid not only can fill that void, but I think he could be, and I know he's not a wide receiver, but I think he could be almost like an R or a WR1. I think he can be Josh Allen's number 1 target. I think he's going to be one of the guys that Josh Allen looks at first in the red zone. He's going to play such a big role in this offense. And let's not forget, when he was drafted out of college, a lot of folks knew that the Bills wanted to go with a receiver. They went with a tight end. But this is a guy that kind of plays a little bit of that hybrid tight end model. I think he's going to fit the offense well. He looks like he's got even more chemistry with Allen in camp. So Kincaid over 800.5 yards. It's a big number for a sophomore, but I don't think there is going to be a slump coming for Dalton Kincaid.
Moving on to mine, I'm actually targeting a couple rookies right off the bat. And I think the rookies, and this is one of the things I think you can really benefit from paying attention to the preseason, is where these rookies are sitting in their offense, how they're being used, their snap share, target share, even right now in the preseason. And the guy that really has stood out to me through 2 weeks that I'm taking an over 875.5 yards on the season receiving is this Malik Neighbors from the Giants. Now, listen, I know you're tying it into Danny Dimes or whatever, but looking at some research done on the Giants preseason so far, when the offense, the number one offense has been out there, he's been on 91% of the plays, and his target share is 33% of offensive snaps. They have moved him around in a number of ways to get him the football. And this guy, I'm seeing comparisons already to Jamar Chase. Now, Chase is a little bigger than him, but Brian Daboll, first of all, to take some of the pressure off Danny Dimes, who looks a lot more rugged this year. He's got a beard. I'm not sure whether that's going to improve his play this season. But you know what should improve his play this season more than anything is the fact that they've got this Malik Neighbors, who is, he's got some chase in him. He's got some Tyreek Hill in him. Where the Giants are right now, they are looking to make their offense far, far more dynamic. And the guy that is going to do that this year is Malik Neighbors. I think of every receiver, and listen, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get a ton of looks right now when he gets in there from Kyler Murray, a little bit of a different player. But when you think about the yardage totals, Neighbors has the ability to take it to the house every time it goes into his hands. So, I'm quite confident that they'll have a few big plays that eat up a ton of yards. And I think he's going to get enough action as long as he stays healthy, which is the caveat of any of these right now. So right off the bat, I'm loving the over 875 for Malik Neighbors in the Giants. I think he goes for 1,000 yards easy, providing he stays healthy. And I think he'll be right in the mix for the Offensive Rookie of the Year by the time we get to the end of the season.
To be totally transparent, that was the one that I looked at, but because I'm so heavy on Coleman, I was kind of not wanting to bet that one because, well, if he's going to have an explosive electric year, that probably means that my Coleman bet is there to die. But maybe I piggyback off both of them, get a Rookie of the Year on Neighbors. And let's be honest, man, LSU is a wide receiver factory. The guy his measurables are just off the chart. I totally agree with you on this one. I'll probably ride on with you on this one. I love the pick here.
Yeah, just the one thing, he is 15-1 on the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I'll probably have a little sprinkle on that. It probably should be lower, except for the fact that we know this is a league about quarterbacks. It's starting off with Caleb Williams, who's plus 140. He and Jaden Daniels are going to be starting in week 1. If they have strong seasons, they probably do it. It would take something, I think, incredible if either one of those guys has a strong, if the Bears make the playoffs or the Commanders get to around 500 and it's on the back of a rookie quarterback that started 17 games, it might be tough to make happen. But I will say this, there's plenty of potential for Malik Neighbors right now. Jake, where are you going with your second pick?
Yeah, you listen, Patty said he's big on the awards. I've been just heavy on the yard totals here. And I'm going to a tight end here, kind of piggybacking off of what Patty said about Kincaid. I like Evan Ingram, over 800.5 receiving yards. I think this guy is going to see a heavy target share for a Jacksonville Jaguars team that, lost Calvin Ridley, who had 136 targets last year. He led the team in targets a year ago. He had 143 targets. This is Ingram. He was first among tight ends in targets. And he had 934 yards. He was a third amongst tight ends in yards a season ago. You look at the supporting cast. Travis Etienne is a big piece, obviously, in the run game and a bit in the pass game as well for Lawrence. They got Christian Kirk as the wide receiver 1 right now. Gabe Davis, who's come in, and Patty can attest to this. Sometimes he has huge games. Sometimes he has 0 reception games. You never really know what you're going to get consistently with Davis. And then they got a rookie from LSU. It's funny, we were just talking about Neighbors. They got Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU as kind of their third guy there. So they have some solid pieces in terms of the receiving game, but I think their number one guy, and believe it or not, as a tight end, I think it's Evan Ingram right now. And I think when it comes to a safety blanket, a guy that Lawrence can trust, that's where the ball is going to go. So I like him over 800.5 receiving yards this season.
It's funny, you were mentioning, I got my next one as a tight end as well, and I thought you were about to snipe me. I do love Ingram, though. He's one of my keepers, in an auction league where I got him relatively cheap. He was TE2 last year. And I think the fact that he's got an extra year, that comfort with Trevor Lawrence, definitely in on that. Even with Brian Thomas and some of the new weapons around him, he's the safety blanket, and he's basically a wide receiver out there. I mean, he gets a ton of looks and continues to boost his stock. Patty, what's up for your second?
Jake, you were talking about Gabe Davis. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. It's basically how you can sum up the way that he plays. So if you don't know the meme, figure it out. I'm going to go with a Defensive Player of the Year award, and I'll be honest, I thought this number was going to be way shorter. Aiden Hutchinson, 11-1, I think is just unbelievable value for this player and for this award. Historically, especially as of late, this award has been dominated by guys that can attack the quarterback. 13 of the last 15 Defensive Player of the Year awards have been won by either a defensive tackle, a defensive end, or a linebacker. So I'm going to continue with that trend and go down the board for a guy that I just don't see how he's only 11-1. He finished with 11.5 sacks last year, just outside the top 10. He forced 3 fumbles, had 33 quarterback hits, and broke up 7 passes. I think if we see the jump when he took from his rookie year to year 2 to year 3, there is no doubt this guy is going to be sniffing around this award. 11-1 is a huge reason, but another reason for me is this is a Detroit Lions team that had a lot of hype around it last year as a team that came out of nowhere. The hype is still going to be there. If they do, replicate what they did last year, is Jared Goff going to be an MVP candidate? Probably not. I think the guy that they're going to rally around, and I know it's a lot of media. Well, that's what this award really is. It's a lot about a media hype. If this defense can improve and take steps to match what they were doing offensively, it's going to be on the heels of Aiden Hutchinson. I love Hutchinson here at 11-1. I think there's other guys near the top of the board that you might think are more of a sure thing. But 11-1, this just doesn't make sense for a young guy in this league who is on the precipice of becoming a superstar in the NFL.
Listen, speaking of high picks, of course, Hutchinson was number 2 overall a couple years ago. I have another rookie that I love their prop for this year, and this might surprise you. I'm actually going to the Raiders, and the Raiders are laughable in many ways. However, this Brock Bowers that they drafted in the first round this year is an absolute stud. And again, I'll go back to what you can learn from the preseason. Brock Bowers in the games and the times that he's played has been lined up outside. He's been lined up inside. He's been lined up in the backfield. He's moving around. Like, the bottom line is that especially with we'll see what happens with Davante Adams going forward. He's probably even better and more lethal with Davante Adams in because of how much attention that Davante Adams tracks. His receiving total for the season is 650 yards, 5. I think he's going to be the number 2 receiver on this team behind Davante Adams as long as he's there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more targets than Davante Adams just because of the nature of Adams being on the outside, although one of the most elite route runners in the league. We've seen tight ends, and you kind of mentioned Evan Ingram. He's very similar to that. Travis Kelce. This is what the Raiders were picking when they got Brock Bowers, who had an unparalleled career at the tight end position with Georgia, winning those national championships. I think that his number should probably be in and around the 8s. Like, I would almost pick, if you had an adjusted odds and gave me plus 140 or something like that, I would look at him to get into the 800s. I think the 650 is a really comfortable line. I think once he establishes himself in the NFL, we're never going to see a number like this. And the other thing that I will say, keeping in mind that this is the Raiders, there is going to be plenty of garbage time this year for that team. And there's nothing better for fantasy and for season-long props than having your guys in there going through the motions against teams that have already won the football game, that are playing off. For a rookie, I think they're going to continue to feed him the football. Love Brock Bowers over 650.5 receiving yards for the season. Jake, your final pick today.
Yeah, I'll make it quick here, and I'll just piggyback off of last week. I'm going Michael Pittman Jr. over 1,500 receiving yards this year. I think this guy is a clear number one on this Colts team. You look at their depth chart, it's Pittman, Josh Downs, and then Adonai Mitchell, the rookie that they got in the draft. So I think it's clearly the guy that Anthony Richardson is going to look to when he needs to get the ball off. He was 9th in targets last year across the entire NFL. And this guy was also a 1,000-yard receiver with Carson Wentz as his quarterback a couple of years ago. So he can get it done with anybody. We saw him do it last year with Gardner. I think with a guy like Anthony Richardson, get this guy the ball as much as you can. And I think, listen, I've been beating the Colts drum here now for 2 episodes in a row. I think Pittman could have a career year here. He's still young. I think this is a good time for him to show the true wide receiver one ability that he has.
We are all on the Colts this year just so they can win the division and you can recreate the song that is out there for everyone to see on the Coolbet socials from the show last week. Patty, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to hold off on my last pick here because I think we're going to save it for our other show. It is an MVP pick. That will be my little teaser. But I was just going through, and I actually do like one here. I just picked it up here. Jalen Hurts, under 10.5 rushing touchdowns this season. This is twofold. One, I talked about it last week. I'm fading the Eagles this year. I think they take a step back. The heartbeat of the tush push. You could say it's Jalen Hurts. No, it really was Jason Kelce. He's not here. Also, they brought in Saquon Barkley. They are going to give a lot of touches in the red zone to that guy. Last year, Hurts finished with 15 rushing touchdowns. Unbelievable stuff. I get it. But how many of those were the tush push? How many of those were sneaks? The year before that, 13, and the year before that, 10. And that was really never with a clear-cut running back number one. I think Saquon Barkley is going to get a ton of touches in the red zone. It's going to be a sweat. It's going to be close, but I'm going to go with Hurts under, and I'm fading the tush push.
I don't think people are talking enough about what Kelce, his departure means, both on the line of scrimmage and around that team. I'm sort of with you. Like, Philly has so much talent. I can't see them not making the playoffs, but I don't think that they're going to be the team to beat in the NFC. I will go to one league leader prop. And again, the guy that I'm talking about is Breece Hall here. And Breece Hall for the Jets last year, I'm just pulling this up. He had 994 yards. He started 16 games. And he did that playing for a team that had literally no quarterbacking. I mean, when Breece Hall was out there, you want to stack 8 in the box, do it the whole time. He had to deal with so much. And he still basically hit 1,000 yards. And he got 591 on the in the air. The checkdowns might, I think the receiving totals probably go down a little bit with Aaron Rodgers, because Rodgers not going to need to check down as much as the guys that they had playing quarterback last year. But let's face it, think about every Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett offense we've seen. They run the football. They do play action as well as anybody in the league. And without the ability to just get ready, assuming that it's going to Breece Hall, I think his potential for a monster season goes up significantly. He's plus 800 to lead the league with most rushing yards. And I would suggest that I think is a very fair number. And I think that he should be more in the lines at the 6-1 with Saquon Barkley, the 650 with Jonathan Taylor. McCaffrey coming off that monster yard is plus 250. But let's not forget, he is going to be dealing with this hammy for the first little while. He'll play early on, but I think the Niners will use him as much as they sort of need to. I think that's going to be a big advantage for the other guys early on. And then depending on what happens and how the season's looking like at the end of the year, they may be in a situation where they don't have to press McCaffrey as much. So I think it opens it up to some other guys. And listen, younger running backs, I'll always take them over guys with more tread on the tires, like Barkley, like Taylor, like Derrick Henry, the other guys in the top 5. To me, the guy with the biggest upside this year in a much different situation is Breece Hall, 8-1. And as far as his prop for the season, I believe he is at 1,055. He went for 1,000 last year. Again, we had a very, very different situation. If he stays healthy, I think he smashes this over right now. So I'll take the over, but I also like a little sprinkle on Breece Hall at 8-1 to lead the league in rushing this season. Good stuff today, fellas. We're looking forward to WST today. We're going to be, we'll definitely be talking about the poker tourney with our WSTers and Victory Monday after a rare Sunday game for the Bombers. I think they're only one this season. Certainly the only one so far. So we'll be getting into that. And again, if you popped in a little bit late, do not forget tomorrow, you are all invited to play with us. The Lock Shop Poker Series, our first ever trial run with a little EST, WST, and Lock Shop Poker Tourney. What you're going to want to need to do is just go to Coolbet, where you normally place your bets on the football games and everything like that. At the top, click on poker, download the poker app. I highly recommend that. It is a great platform, especially if you're using it just on your laptop or your home computer. And then you can search in the tab for Lock Shop, or just go to the tournaments. The event is tomorrow night if you're in Edmonton or Alberta, 8 o'clock start time, 9 o'clock for those of you here in Winnipeg. And get in there. It says it's a €20 buy-in, which is basically $30. And if you knock out me or you knock out Dusty, you're going to get the $100 bounty that has been hung on our heads. Dusty will be back tomorrow in the Lock Shop, but guys, we will see you tomorrow for what should be a lot of fun. And by the way, if you are wondering just about how to do it, pay attention to the Coolbet socials a little later on. Dusty and I will share it. Jake's going to just run through exactly what to do to get the app installed and how to enter the tourney tomorrow night. I look forward to seeing many of you there. Shout out to everyone. Great weekend in the Lock Shop. We'll try and keep it running tomorrow. And of course, the big Tuesday night poker game. We'll see you there. Jake, Patty, have a good one, pal. Thanks again for doing this.